Contracts, one of the scariest parts of real estate deals for new investors. Gosh, is my contract perfect? We're going to demystify contracts and teach you today how you can have a bulletproof contract to protect you in your real estate deals. That's what we're talking about today on the Sub2Deals Show. Hey, deed grabbers, welcome to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we may cover other real estate investing topics, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. If you're listening to our podcast on Apple, Google, or any of the other podcast platforms out there, we'd like to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at sub2tv.com. That's SUB, the number 2, TV.com. You can watch our podcast, see our smiling faces, and see all of the other videos that we release each and every week, just about one every single day, something to help you with your real estate investing business. And listen, if you're just learning about creative finance or Sub2, we'd like to invite you to download our totally free creative finance guide. And you can do that at sub2deals.com/CFG. It's a huge ebook telling you several different ways that you can buy real estate with no money down, no banks, no credit, all that good stuff. So get over there and check that out. And if you're looking for coaching, I'd like to invite you to check out the most affordable coaching program on the planet. Just go to $7coaching.com. That's the number 7. $7coaching.com, and I'll teach you to buy real estate for $7 a month. Now, that is the price of a latte at your local coffee shop. If you find a better deal on creative finance coaching, tell me about it, because I want to get involved in that. Guys, today we're talking about contracts, how to draw up contracts that protect you, protect your deal. And, that's a really scary topic for a lot of newer investors. A lot of investors fail to get a deal under contract because, well, frankly, they're just afraid of the paperwork. We've got an expert here today, Shannon Robnett, real estate developer and syndicator, been in the business for over 27 years and been involved in over $250 million worth of projects, including multifamily, office buildings, public buildings, police stations, schools, industrial, and mini storage. He's an expert on contracts, so we're going to bring him in to talk to us about them. Welcome, Shannon, to the Sub2Deals Show.
Thank you, William. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Hey, listen, we're excited to have you here today and talk about contracts. Before we get started, introduce yourself. Tell everybody about Shannon and why he's an expert in real estate.
Well, I grew up in a real estate family, and honestly, I was too tired of the indentured servitude that I had as a child, working on job sites and everything. And I was going to go to college and do something different. But I got to tell you, I was watching my brother make good money and build houses while I was going to college and working at a coffee shop to pay my insurance. And I figured, well, money does make the world go round, so probably ought to look at this. And I really just jumped back into the family business, began to mentor with my father. My mother's a 3rd-generation realtor. I got my license at one point. My son is a 5th-generation realtor. So we've just always been involved in it. And, it's funny because Subject to is a really popular topic. Again, it's gotten more popular as things have changed in the economy. But, I've been using Subject to for 25 years, and it just really fits when you know what you need to get done and you know what the seller wants to accomplish, and you're able to put something together that works for everybody. It can be the most effective contract out there, and is definitely one I use often, even on multi-million dollar deals.
Yeah, you can sub-to anything that's got a loan on it. It doesn't matter, commercial, multifamily, certainly single family homes, cars, boats, doesn't matter. It's just really a form of financing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I use Subject to a lot in my development stuff. as subject to certain criteria being met.
Mhm.
And so I use it in two different ways. My office building that I'm currently in now, it's worth about $8 million. Uh, that is an owner finance subject to. And then we use that a lot in our development projects. So
Mhm.
we're definitely familiar with it on many different facets.
Yeah, I think it's great. When I got started, I had good credit. I didn't have a lot of cash, but I could get deals financed. But what really got me onto subject two, as far as the financing, was that I could just buy as much stuff as I wanted to. I didn't have
Yeah.
to qualify every time. I had basically a blank check. As long as the seller was agreeable and it fit what they wanted to accomplish, it worked really well for us. So we absolutely love it.
Well, and I think that's where, in a lot of cases, William, the thing that you're looking for to get a good subject to deal is meeting the seller's objectives.
Mhm.
A lot of people, they go rushing into a deal. They don't look at why are they selling? What are they trying to accomplish? What could be the highest and best use of this particular asset as far as what the seller's trying to accomplish? But if you'll take the time up front and just kind of figure out why are they selling? Are they selling because they're tired of the headaches of the management? But they're not understanding the tax implications of what may happen to them, or are they selling because they need the cash? What is the reality here? And I've found that just slowing down a little bit and getting to know the seller and why this is something they want to do has really helped me to create a lot better subject to deals,
Mhm.
because I'm able to really meet the needs of the seller instead of just looking at what I need out of the deal,
Right,
right?
right.
But when you're looking at what the seller's trying to accomplish, we're very creative people. And when we take the time to figure out what the seller wants to accomplish and we put that into writing and get them what they want out of the deal, we have a lot better chance of getting what we want.
Right. That's for sure. What I like to tell my students is the deal is in the story.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely, 100%.
a house is a house is a house. Most of them have at least a couple of bedrooms, a
Yep,
bathroom, a kitchen, but it's the seller and their story, and that's where
yep,
you'll find your deal. So you
yep.
got two ears and one mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk, and you'll probably find a solution. And it's not always a bank loan or cash. So
Right,
that's what
right.
we like. Well, Shannon, today I brought you on today to talk about contracts. Contracts for me, one of the first steps with a new investor. Of course, you gotta find a deal. Then, if you don't get that thing under contract, you don't have anything. You see these guys popping on Facebook, man, I found this deal. The seller's ready to go. It's blah 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 blah. And what do I do next? Well, do you
Right.
even have it under contract? Because you don't have it under contract, you ain't got nothing. So
Right. And you just told the world about it.
right, right. We all know. And I'm like, what is the address on this thing? If you're not going to put it under contract, I
Exactly.
am. Uh,
Exactly.
to start off with this, what is a real estate contract?
Well, a real estate contract is just an agreement between the buyer and the seller to do certain things in certain time frames, and there has to be some sort of consideration to make it valid,
Mhm.
right? So you can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to buy your house for $100,000 in 45 days," and have that be good. There's got to be some sort of an earnest money exchange to make that a valid contract.
Right.
But it's that basic. You could have contracts be very short. You could have contracts be very elaborate with a lot of things in there. Some of our development stuff it gets quite elaborate because we want to meet certain milestones and prove to the sellers that we're moving forward and that we're going to be a good buyer for that. But I think it's probably one of the most overthunked parts of the real estate business because it can just be simple. And a lot of times we start even simpler than that with a letter of an LOI, letter of
Right.
intent, that says, "Hey, these are the things that we see we want, right? These are the things that we want to do for you." That is able to spell some of that out. And on some of the more complicated deals, that can be the case. But on a lot of the stuff, just getting a contract out there, not being afraid of people redlining it or people changing terms in the deal, because it's a negotiation on paper, and when they see that in writing, boy, it really changes how the sellers look at you, because they're not looking at you as just all talk, because you're
Right.
actually reducing it to writing.
Right. One of the things we do here locally is we door knock foreclosures. We research pre-foreclosures at the courthouse, and instead of just going out and door knocking and leaving a note or something, if we don't get to talk to somebody, and even if we do, we hand it to them, we give them a package that's got a letter in there that explains who we are and what we do. And it's also got a contract in there. We leave that on the door. I mean, that shows, listen, I'm not just, playing around. I'm ready to sign something with you and buy this house. So, but, to what you're saying about a contract and the ability to be really simple, you can look at some of these contracts that are 20 pages, and ours is a simple one-page contract. It's got all the key elements. I mean, there's an offer, there's consideration, there's a timeline, there's a property named in it, there's a buyer, and there's a seller. And you don't really need too much more than that. We also, an important thing is that you give yourself a period of due diligence.
Yeah.
And some people really take it to an extreme: approval by this partner, that partner, weasel clauses. We don't have any of that stuff. We've got a period of time to check title, to verify mortgage balances, verify the condition of the property. And that's that. If everything checks out what the seller told us, boom, this deal's done.
Right. And, I think that, even in our complicated deals, we're less than 5 pages,
Right.
But we have, we can have things in there that involve city municipalities, that involve, a lot of those things. And, from a developer's point of view, there's a lot of times when a seller, quote unquote, knows what it's worth, but they don't know how to get it to be that value. If you've got a piece of development property, you're pretty understanding of where that development property is and what the value is. And maybe you talk to a realtor, maybe you don't, but you've got the ability to understand that there is a lot more information that needs to come out of this. And conveying that in timelines has been extremely helpful for us, because we're able to explain to the seller in writing why we need this time. We just wrapped up a deal. It was a $8 million land purchase, where we had a period of due diligence that could last up to 365 days. That's a long due diligence period. A lot of people don't understand why you would need 365 days.
Right.
Well, what we did was we put a schedule together, and we showed that, hey, within 15 business days, we're going to have this meeting with the city, and here's the notes from the meeting. And then, we had all these timelines built out. And when the people really understood, the sellers understood, this is why it's going to take this long, they began to be very understanding of what we were trying to accomplish on their behalf, because at the end of the day, we were getting things done to the property that would improve the value for them. But again, William, it's straight back to that story. What are you conveying to them about what their property can be, or what you can do with it, and what's going to be the options for that, and where are you going to be adding that value, so that they know you're not just sitting on your hands and tying up the property so you go find another buyer.
Exactly. Okay. Now, you mentioned something earlier when we were defining a real estate contract, and I want to get some clarity on that. We talked about earnest money or consideration, and a big misconception out there among people, and you'll hear this a lot, especially with realtors. If you don't put X down as earnest money, the contract won't be valid if you find yourself in court, or even the fact that you have to have cash as consideration. And you and I know that's not true. Tell everybody about that, as far as how much you have to put up as earnest money. Do you even have to use cash as consideration?
Well, again, back to this last $8 million deal, we put up a $400,000 promissory note,
Mhm.
personally guaranteed by me, recorded
Right.
at the title company. And that was the 5%, but that didn't even become something that I had to do more than sign the promissory note until all the boxes were checked on the
Right.
deal. And so for a literal slip of paper, and when you think about it, if you're doing 5 or 6 or 7 of these large scale deals, you could have a couple $1 million out in earnest money if your head wasn't wrapped around the fact that this is something you need to understand. But again, we're able to convey the story about who we are, what we've done in the past, what our future looks like as far as getting this approved. We're meeting milestones, we're doing all those things. And so the promissory note is a very, very valid thing
Mhm.
that we use repeatedly. We use it all the time. I mean, it would, if I would probably say that 60% of our deals, even in large scale multifamily and industrial deals, are done with a promissory note.
Right. And don't let that $400,000 scare you guys that do single family stuff, because
No.
I have tied up many, many, many properties with $100 promissory note. I was talking to Shannon before we came on today. I said, man, I learned that in a Carlton Sheets course.
Yeah.
Give them a promissory note for the earnest money, and then it's not due until closing.
Well, and the other thing that, I mean, the reason I put that $400,000 number out there is because people think it only works on small deals,
Mhm.
and it doesn't. It's
Right.
about conveying the belief that you will perform. That's
Right.
all that consideration is there for. And if you're not able to perform, is the person going to be able to get their $100,000 or $400,000 from you if that's the case?
Right. And I'll tell you guys this too, and speaking more in the single family stuff, because that's where my experience lies. We talk about, you get anything larger than single family. My biggest, as far as multifamily, I bought a duplex once. Okay.
Mhm.
That was
Right.
the big, that was my foray out of single family. I was a duplex once. So as far as this commercial stuff, man, I couldn't tell you anything about it. But with single family homes, most of the sellers that you're going to deal with aren't concerned with the earnest money. They're just not. They're concerned with a solution to their immediate problem.
Well, and the other thing too, William, the earnest money doesn't, it's not like you give that to them,
Right.
right? You give the earnest money is there and it's usually held in escrow or trust.
Mhm.
In the instance that you get all the time that you want, your due diligence is done and everything else is ready, and you fail to close. It's their security blanket.
Right.
And again, let's go all the way back to the very first thing of the story. If you've shown a good story, if you've projected who you are and what you can do for them in an accurate way, you're right. The last concern they have is the earnest money, because they're only going to get that if you fail.
Right.
And so again, like you do with projecting, coming to the table with the package and the contract and showing them all the things up front, it lets them know that I am prepared to take the next step in this story to come to the conclusion that you're looking for, Mr. Seller,
Yeah,
Mrs. Seller. And when you've conveyed that, the last thing they're thinking about is the earnest money.
for sure. For sure. Okay, so Shannon, what do you feel like in your experience that some of the key things an investor needs to have in the contract to protect themselves? What are some of the key clauses that they need to have in that contract?
Well, I always like to include the things that I need, and I like to be as specific as I can. If I need certain municipalities' approvals, great. When does my due diligence stop after that municipality approval? In the case of my particular office building here, I set up some very keen parameters around what was going to happen and how. And I had very direct um, repercussions if those things didn't happen, right? And so I think where a lot of people get in trouble is their lack of certainty, or their vagueness in the contract that says I got a 21-day due diligence period, and at the end of that time I'm going to close. But what are you looking for in your due diligence? Are you looking for a foundation inspection? Are you looking for, asbestos reports, lead-based paint? What are you really looking for that makes it something that they can look at and go, well, Shannon's only got 15 things that he's trying to check the boxes on. I can call Shannon and say, hey, it's day 20. How you doing? Well, I got 13 of them. I got 2 more to go. Could I get a 4-day extension? Because we've created that and we've set the parameters out there so that people can understand we're not throwing, like I think you called them weasel clauses, right?
Mhm. Right.
But it's just this wet blanket over the whole thing that says I can tie you up for all this time and I don't have to provide any of my stuff or show you anything that I'm doing or provide any kind of a progress report. And in single family, that'll happen quickly. You're going to do your inspections, but if you're telling them, I'm going to get the chimney inspected and I'm going to get, I'm going to do a title inspection and I'm going to make sure the taxes are paid and I'm going to do these things, the more direct and the more specific you can get, I believe the more clarity it brings to the seller, and it creates the story that lets people know William is a professional. He knows how to get this done. He knows exactly what he's looking for. And I'm not going to be run down a rabbit trail and left on the side of the road.
Right, for sure. You know, dealing with people in single family homes, and most of them, not all of them, but most of them, I'll give you a good example of that. You know, a lot of people think for someone to agree to a sub-2 deal, they have to be desperate, in foreclosure, getting a divorce, about to lose their house to something. But, you know, that's just not true. We got a house under contract last week. These people are current on their payments. It's a nice house. It's only 2 years old. They're highly motivated to move because they don't like the school district they're in. Their kids are getting a little bit older. They want to move them into a certain school district. So they're willing to sell us a property that's worth about $270 for $223,000. They've got a $203,000 loan. They need $20,000 to buy some land and get started on another house. And so we're going to pay them $20,000, take over a $203,000 debt at 2.75% interest, which is incredible. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, these people aren't behind on their payments. Their motivation is to be in a new school district, and they want to get rid of this house that's a burden to them. So they don't have to be super motivated, but we keep the contract very simple. All we need is 2 weeks for due diligence. That gives us plenty of time for our title work inspection, verify loan information that they've given us, balance, rates, things like that, and then any inspections that we want done on the property. So we keep those things super short because they just want to know this is the only thing standing between me and getting out of this house. Once that period of time is complete, boom, we're on, so they can make their plans. Big difference, I think, between that and a large commercial project where you need a lot more time to get things done.
Well, but it's also about, again, what does the seller need, right?
Mhm.
So you're going to go in, you're going to be done quick. You don't need a lot of time. You conveyed that to the seller. I'm a professional. I can get this done in a short period of time. I can meet your need of getting out of this house. And they're looking at it going, well, if we went with a typical real estate contract, we'd probably have, you know, loan approval and all that other stuff that's going to put us
Right.
out 45 days. But we can have this quick solution and we can get the money that we need to move on down the road to what's next. And again, you're meeting the seller's objective that they may not even have understood was their only objective, right?
Mhm.
And we did that with this office building. You know, the sellers, they had an underlying note on it. We took it down to that underlying note. We were able to negotiate the rest of it. We were able to close fairly quickly. And the seller was able to go on and do another project, and we're tied into a great project here. But we wanted to do something with the house that they didn't, or with the office building that they didn't. And in doing that, we were able to allow them to move on to succeed elsewhere. You know, kind of like that one guy that just never does it. You just encourage him to go succeed elsewhere. But we were able to do that with them, with meeting their need in a very short time frame compared to what other people would be able to come up with on a traditionally financed office building in this condition.
Yep. Okay. Well, next question here, and we run into this from time to time. What do you think about it? Let's say that you're negotiating with somebody. Maybe this isn't a typical homeowner, and this probably happens more in your case than with mine. But you're dealing with someone, they insist on using their own contract. Do you feel like that's a problem for you?
No.
And what do you do to get around any thing they may have that's unfavorable in their contract?
Well, the reality is, you know, I mean, we deal with that situation a lot where somebody brings their contract and we got to figure our way around it. But, you know, it's really, again, instead of, you know, a lot of this where, you know, I don't like this, you've got it to where it's not beneficial to me, you know, and rightly so. It's your contract. It should be favorable to you. But just ask them, why do you have this in your contract? What's the objective here? How can we make this more fair? Right? Because I think when most people have issues with the contract, it's because it's very one-sided in that particular area. And again, if you're conveying that I know what I'm doing, I know how to do what I'm doing, and I want to get you a fair deal, but this part of the contract isn't really it's very, very favorable to you, and we need to amend that. So I prefer when I've redlined my contract, I set up an appointment to talk with, you know, the seller or the seller's representative, and I walk through why. again, William, you can't say this enough. It's the story.
Right.
Why do you want this out of it? Why is this a problem for you? I just don't like it. It's not favorable to me. Well, are you planning on defaulting on the contract? Well, no, but and a lot of times people get hung up on everything that has to be out of the contract versus what does that do and how can you even add language that gives you the same kind of representation on that particular matter. Same kind of fair treatment that says, well, if the seller's going to get that, then I should get that also.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So, the topic today was bulletproof contracts. And in your opinion, Shannon, what are some key things that you should have in your contract that are going to make it bulletproof?
Well, obviously you've got your purchase price. You've got your terms, and your terms need to be as specific as possible, especially in commercial stuff. But the other thing that you've got to have is in my opinion, you've got to have an option to extend.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have a mechanism in there that if all hell breaks loose on your side, you got an aunt back east that dies and you got to go out there or whatever happens, you've got the ability to extend on your side
Mm-hmm.
for either a fee or something there that allows you time. Because,
Right.
if you're in a situation and this deal you brought up, William, where you got a $275,000 house under contract for $225, with the 2.75% financing, honestly, if they put that on the market and advertised that they were willing to do a subject to, they probably could have got $300,000 in value because of
Right.
of what the payment is going to be.
Right.
Or probably even more. I haven't done the math, but the way you smiled, I know it'd probably be 3.25, right?
Yeah.
But when you're doing that and you're up against the wall, sometimes Murphy's Law jumps in there and it just doesn't quite go right. You got
Right.
another deal that's closing that's bringing the 22. You're supposed to close on Monday. You weren't set to close this one till Friday. Something happened. The wire got hung up or whatever, and you
Right.
need a couple more days. You've got to have that in there. Outside of that, I think that you've got, again, your purchase price, your due diligence, your closing, and your ability to extend. I think those are the basic things that you absolutely have to have. And I think the more you keep it simple like that, the less there is that people go through, golly, what's this 12-page contract? Somebody's going to get sued over this,
Right.
And that it helps. The simpler, the better, in my opinion.
I agree. And that's why our contract is a one-pager. And we make sure we point that out to our sellers. Listen, our process is very simple. We've got a one-page, no-nonsense contract. We go through it with them line by line. They see there's no junk in there. If we need to extend, we can extend an extra 30 days for the amount of their mortgage payment. That's fair to them because we cover their mortgage payment and we get to extend for 30 days. So I totally agree with you on that extension. That's super important. Well, Shannon, a ton of great information here. We appreciate the heck out of it. Tell everybody about how they can get in touch with you and, what you can help them with.
Well, we do a lot of creative things. And so if you've got creative solutions that you're looking for on the commercial side, feel free to reach out to us at shannonrobnett.com. All my social media stuff's there, my book club, even access to my calendar. If you want to make an appointment and talk about something as far as what you're looking at, we've got a lot of that information there, but we just send everybody one place, shannonrobnett.com. And you can find us all right there.
Okay. So you guys get over there. If you're doing commercial stuff, which, gosh, you cover just about everything commercial, don't you, Shannon? I mean, everything from multifamily to institutional stuff, mini storage, the whole bit.
We've done it all. That's for sure. Medical office, schools, fire stations. I haven't seen a subject to on a fire station yet, but when I do, William, I'll call you.
Let me know, man. I want to hear about that for sure.
You just want to slide down the pole. I know, but
that's right. Okay, Shannon. Well, thanks so much for being here and sharing information on contracts. Everybody, if you're interested in commercial, want to learn more, get over to his website and contact him. So thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, William.
All right. Great. Okay, guys, that is it for this episode of the Sub2Deals Show. We appreciate you joining us today. And again, if you are listening to our podcast, get over to our YouTube channel, sub2tv.com. That's SUB, the number 2, TV.com. We'd love to have you as a subscriber and help teach you the wonderful world of Sub2 and creative finance. And listen, if you're looking for coaching on a serious level, consider joining us at Sub2 Max. Sub2 Max is our premium group coaching program. It's a wonderful place to be. We do 3 times a year in-person masterminds. Okay. We all get together at some great location and spend 4 days talking about our businesses, helping each other get over obstacles, and just sharing what works. It's a great program. It's super affordable. We'd love to have you join us. So guys, until next time, get out there, talk to some sellers, and buy some houses.